So what up guys, this is the other wacky crazy deck I wanted to show you that I've been playing around with in Modern. This one is actually better than the other one. I've called it Blood Magic because it's a combo based on two blood cards, and man is it fun. It is a fun deck to play. This I'm probably off on my list, but I'm not off by that much. Like, Plea for Guidance wants to be Idyllic Tutor, but those are 5 tickets piece, so might be a while before I invest in those. But it's actually, this was the impetus for building the deck because you can search up your whole win condition with one tutor spell. Now, that said, it's 6 mana sorcery speed, and your win condition is 2 5 mana cards, so it's like taking 3 turns to go off. That said, the deck is, the win con is somewhat hard to interact with. So, and I'll explain that. But it's sort of an enchantment themed deck in black white. We've got our win condition is Sanguine Bond and Exquisite Blood. And how that works is whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. Whenever you gain that much life, target opponent loses that much life. So these triggers are the reverse of each other. So once you have both of these in play, if a life total changes, you win. It just kills your opponent. And so we have a whole bunch of other stuff in here that can cause a change in life total in order to trigger that. The best way is to have Underworld Coinsmith in play when you cast the second one of those two enchantments. It doesn't matter which order you do it in. If you have this guy out, when an enchantment comes into play, you just automatically gain a life. So this guy's good as a 2-mana 2/2. It gains you a lot of life. You can search for it with Plea for Guidance if you want, and it's an enchantment which counts toward your Sphere of Safety, which I'll discuss at the end. Viscopa Guildmage has a second ability that mirrors Sanguine Bond. So that's why there's only 2 Sanguine Bonds, because A, we can search for them, and B, we have these 4 Guild Mages here that do the same thing. So that's why I've gone with the 3-2 split in the enchantments in the win con. This can also give something lifelink in order to, change the life totals. Wellspring is here as sort of a ramp, or because we got a lot of expensive cards. We want to make sure we hit our land drops. So this ensures we hit our land drops. Also goes well with Phyrexia's Core because we can sack it to get a second land, plus we gain a life. So this is a way to gain life. It's also a way to trigger our enchantments and go off. Pristine Talisman. This gains us life and stalls. It also triggers our enchantments and goes off. It also ramps us. So this card is perfect for the deck. Now, how do we stay alive? Well, I've got a couple. Journey to Nowheres is just a enchantment-based removal spell, so we can search for it. Banishing Light is a catch-all. Ghostly Prison, which is like propaganda. If you have this in play, opponent's got to invest a lot more mana, so they're probably only like attacking you with 2, 1 or 2 things at a time instead of a whole bunch. This is really great against token decks and whatever. Saves you a lot of life. Underworld Connections, it works really well. It's an enchantment and works really well with Pristine Talisman because you're gaining a lot of life, so you can afford to lose life to draw extra cards. In the sideboard, of course, rest in peace in Stony Silence. Curse of Exhaustion. I wanted to do some like one of enchantments that could win a game against a certain deck. This is like a Rule of Law, but it only works against one person. But also, it only costs 1 more mana, and it costs like nothing in tickets compared to Rule of Law. So I thought this would be fine. It does basically the same thing. Ivory Mask is basically Leyline of Sanctity without the Leyline ability. But it costs nothing, and Leyline costs 1 million. So it went up. It's like 10 plus 14 tickets. It's something ridiculous. I used to have a set of those. I never should have traded them. Sphere of Safety is extremely powerful. It's expensive. It costs 5, so I don't want it in the deck against every matchup. And if obviously it's horrible against the control deck, but this, like if you have one of the ghostly prisons and then this out, opponent is paying 4 mana for each creature to attack you, and then this stacks with all of the other. You play a lot of enchantments in this type of deck, so that works really well. A couple extra journeys for decks where you want more spot removal. Rest in peace, Stony Silence, obviously, and Defense Grid because you're not doing anything on your opponent's turn. So against a deck with counter spells, I would board those in. This deck works a lot better than you would expect it to work. I know you don't believe me, but I've won some crazy games with this. I've won on turn 5, which I know is not that fast, but for a deck that requires 2 5-mana enchantments, that's pretty sick. So it is possible. It's fairly consistent, and it can stall. It can stall so well. Obviously, you're pretty much cold to burn. I mean, you have a lot of life gain, but it's still it's pretty rough against burn. But it's possible. I've won some sweet games with this deck, so I can't wait to show you this one in action too.